everyone, it's Elo. I hope that you're doing well. I have some Bridget Bardot inspired curtain bangs today because I'm getting my hair, continuing to color my hair tomorrow towards this silver color that I'm going for. And I wasn't able to put any product in it today and I had to wash it today and won't be able to wash it tomorrow just to make sure that it's in a good state to receive the hair dye. So I don't know, this was all I could come up with today to make my natural hair lay somewhat decent, and I don't know if I like it or not, but here we are. So moving on, I have not done a little talking style video in quite some time, so that is what I have decided to do today. And if you're out there watching, I'm sorry that it took me this long to do another video in this style, but I hope that you'll enjoy this one. So I had a thought the other day that I wanted to kind of expand upon. I'm trying to remember exactly what made me have the thought in the first place, but I kind of don't remember because the thought itself ended up being much more profound, I guess, to me in my brain than I was anticipating, so I didn't really catalog the whole mental conversation. That being said, I think that this is a thought that seems and is pretty basic, but just like many other realizations I've had throughout my life, it's one of those things that you might not really get it until you get it. And I'm actually interested to know if there are others of you out there who have a similar experience to me with this kind of stuff, where it's like you think you understand a phrase or general life thought, and then it's not until much later that you realize there was a whole nother layer to it that you didn't even know existed. I don't know. So essentially what the thought kind of boiled down to was, and I don't really care how this sounds, but please know that I'm self-aware enough to know that conventionally this probably isn't something that you're supposed to say out loud. But I mean, you can't grow if you don't let yourself, right? So I think that over the last however many years, I have considered myself to be a good person. And this all started because of a couple things, I think. Number one, as you know, if you've watched any of my talking videos before, I didn't have a super easy childhood in terms of fitting in and gaining any form of self-worth, whether it was at home or at school. So without those kind of building blocks, I experienced both being bullied, and thankfully I never was a bully. That wasn't my automatic response to being treated poorly. It was more to be sad. But elsewhere in my life, just learning how to interact with people, which was a steep upward curve, learning curve for me. You know, I I made mistakes like anyone does, and included was that I did things that seemed to be morally wrong. You know, I lied, I made assumptions and beliefs that either weren't based in reality, or I lied, I made assumptions and created beliefs based on things that were hearsay or weren't reality. You know, the things that you can't really critically think about when you're a kid. At least most of us cannot at that age. I was just as much a participant in those ways in life as anyone else, and I wasn't ever someone who like compulsively lied. Or the main time that I would make these, let's call them moral mistakes, would be to save face. So if I was going to get in really big trouble for something, my gut instinct would more be to bend the truth or completely lie than to fess up. Fortunately, I mean, even though it's intense and now has kind of backfired, I was taught very early on, at least at home, like, don't fucking do that. It caused more trouble than just telling the truth, and I probably still had those moments in my social life longer than I did in my home life for that reason. Like, you'd get in trouble, obviously. So but you know, that it's not like you don't quote unquote get in trouble in your social life for doing those things. It's just different repercussions, and it's more likely to go away sooner, and you might not feel as bad because you didn't upset a parent. You just, you know, fucked up with your friends. So after a number of incidents, moments in my life of things feeling really bad because of a mistake, a moral mistake that I made, I just decided to be the exact opposite of that. I hated the feeling so much that I just one day chose that I'm never going to be a part of that. I'm never going to lie, even if it's going to hurt the other person's feelings. And I've been taught, you know, to lie in certain situations for decorum's sake. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to cover up for people. I'm not going to keep dangerous secrets. I'm not going to do anything that would make me or others feel bad because of my actions or words. And I don't know if this was the catalyst, but the last thing I really remember setting me off was that my best friend group from elementary through middle school and into the beginning of high school, one of them, really stupid, just had a crush on somebody else in the group, and this person that they had a crush on was someone I was fairly close friends with. And we talked, and completely unprompted by me not discussing this person whatsoever, nothing even related, this person asked, the person I was talking to asked me, did the girl like him? And I was like, yeah, because, I mean, what's the big deal? And it turned into a huge mess, like huge, and the girls of the group decided that I just out and told this boy, like, of my own volition, that I just went ahead and said, like, oh, so-and-so likes you, which was not the case. And it didn't really seem like a big deal, but it ended up being the thing that those girls used to sever our friendships, our multi-year, all of our lives essentially, friendships. And it was devastating, of course, you know, like, I would be completely lying to say that it didn't still to this day make me sad. I'm not angry about it anymore. It's not like I'm about to be friends with these people again after not talking to them for almost 10 years. Okay, it is me here editing this video, and I typically let stuff like this fly or just put a little subtitle, but this is too egregious. I don't know why I still think I'm 20, but it has definitely been closer to 20 years since I've spoken with these people. Certainly not 10. I don't know why that number came out of my mouth, but yes, I have not spoken with these people since I was around 16, 15 years old, and I'm currently 32. So I'll let you do the math because I clearly cannot. But it still makes me sad that it was so unnecessary and unjust. That was like the main thing I think that I was feeling, was like, wow, that was really not fair. I didn't do anything wrong, and yet I lost everyone who was important to me. As a little bit of extra context, I had also moved by this point, and these were my friends from back home, so it's not like we saw each other every day or anything. They just kind of stopped long distance communicating with me. In a very hateful way, but anyway. So yeah, that kind of thing still makes me sad to think about, and it was moments like that that just turned me into this person who's like, look, I'm just not gonna do that. It's not worth the pain of hurting someone or losing someone. And I thought, you know, if I can just become someone of good character all the time, 100% of the time, then there will never be a question as to whether or not I did that bad thing. It won't even be, nobody will doubt me ever, because I am so consistently morally upright. And to be perfectly honest, that has worked. Like, it's not a ruse or something that I'm trying to, you know, fake people. It's not like I'm hateful or angry on the inside. I'm really not. It really changed me. My capacity to feel certain hateful or negative or mean emotions literally diminished over the years, because I just never, you know, exercised that muscle, so to speak. It just kind of fell to the side, and I've become this person who just tries to do the right thing all the time, even though I know that that can be very subjective, but that's not the point. So in becoming this person, I think over time I kind of convinced myself that, like, I am a good person because I put the effort into being a good person, and now here I am. You know, it's like I practiced the skill of all of those moral things, you know, like everything down to, like, don't watch porn. You shouldn't do that. I mean, I cuss obviously like a sailor, but I don't really think that there's anything morally wrong with that. So that doesn't ever, and somebody else might disagree and might think I'm a terrible person because I say fuck, or, you know, I take the Lord's name in vain, stuff like that. But for my own criteria, I do all the things that I think most people would say is, you know, don't do that. That's a bad thing to do. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, don't anything. Don't, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. You get the point. And then the other day, whenever I was having whatever thought I was having, it kind of occurred to me that it's really dangerous to believe that you're good, because you end up in this place where not only are you complacent, thinking that you're checking all the boxes already and, like, how much better can I get kind of thing, but also you can't see things from other people's perspective as well, and you don't allow for gray areas. And I guess I just realized that, like, I could be a lot better than I am. Like, how am I going to I don't even know how to articulate this. I think I was actually, part of my thought process at the time was, like, charity, right? I'm not a very charitable person. I'm very jaded when it comes to homeless people because in my area, I feel like 9 times out of 10 they're not actually homeless. They're panhandling illegally and don't really need the money that I'm giving them, or they're just not getting a job, something like that. And I've been duped by multiple people. I've had experiences of offering to buy someone food or batteries or whatever things that they need, and then being verbally abused in public because I wouldn't just give them the money. I even gave this homeless guy money. I was at the park reading, and he just came and, like, sat on the bench that I was on, and he was clearly mentally unwell and was even saying some very dangerous things to me, like, what if I did this bad stuff, traumatic stuff, with me as the subject. And obviously I was like, okay, you know, like, trying to diffuse the situation. But when he asked me for money, instead of just saying sorry, you know, I gotta go, and picking up my things and leaving, which I was kind of terrified, but I gave him money, and he said that he was gonna do whatever good thing with it. He needed it for food, something like that. And that same night, I was walking Frida and saw him passed out with alcohol all around him on the steps to the park. And I'm just like, why do I give the little bits of money that I have, especially at that time, you know, to these people who are just using me? So when it comes to things like that, I am so jaded. I don't believe people are homeless ever. Never. Unless I see them, like, huge proof. I don't believe you. I didn't see you standing there yesterday. You're full of shit. That's kind of my mentality, which, you know, is not very... I'm sure there's someone out there who gives money to somebody every time they see them, regardless. You know, it's like, well, this person must need it more than I do, kind of thing. So that's one aspect of that. Another is that I don't donate charitably. And I will say that these financial things are a little tougher because I really have not had the funds to do anything like that. But even like this year, I probably could. You know, you can donate like $300. That's tax. It benefits you in your taxes. And I don't think I will. I don't trust a lot of charity organizations, and even if there were something I really could believe in to give that money to, I probably wouldn't. I also don't volunteer. I don't make it a point to help other people in my community. I mean, obviously my job I do, but I've never, like, worked at a local church's fundraiser or gone to the soup kitchen or organized, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've never done anything like that before. And when I had to do it in high school, compulsorily, one of the schools I went to was really preppy, and they forced you to do X amount of community service hours every year. And even doing that, I hated it. I was just like, God damn it, this is a waste of my time. Like, I don't want to do this. I always have this thought of like, I need help, so how am I going to help other people? Like, and that's not a great perspective, right? What is so morally upstanding about that? That's terrible. I'm sure that there are many avenues of my life that I could be better in, and I've probably kept myself from that by thinking I'm doing such a good job. And like I said, I know that I mean, it's hard for me to even say that out loud because part of my being morally upstanding is not bragging, you know, being humble and never thinking too much of myself, which honestly I probably wouldn't do anyway. I think that's kind of part of the problem too, is in what the juxtaposition of the two statements I just made. In between those two, the reason why I'm always humble is mainly because I don't have any confidence in myself, not because I'm trying to be a good person. The means to get to the ends is not coming from a healthy place. You know, it's all of this lifestyle that I've chosen in this regard was not for a really good reason other than the thought of not wanting to hurt someone else, you know? There's so much more to it, so many more complex layers to it that are just almost out of necessity or fear or I don't know. It just really like hit me that you shouldn't, and I can't make you shouldn't statements, but I'm going to. You shouldn't think that you're good. People don't want to be the villain, but believing that you're good is dangerous. believing that you're good and that you're in the right clouds everything. It's such a very specific lens to see the world through. And as I already kind of mentioned, a lot of this is subjective anyway. I think people will probably be more suited to the human experience if they don't believe that they're good. You know, try to do good, sure. Try to make good decisions and choices that you can be proud of. Try to have integrity. South Park joke, if you don't watch South Park, integrity. And, you know, this is another interesting thing that I actually just heard on a podcast this morning that I was listening to, a massage podcast actually. And this woman author was on talking about her book or something, and instead of the golden rule, she has the platinum rule. And I don't know if she came up with this or if somebody else did, so excuse me if I'm misquoting, but she was talking about this platinum rule, which is not to treat others the way you want to be treated, but to treat others the way they want to be treated. And I think that gets lost when you have some great belief that you are good. And again, that might sound so simple, but I bet that it's really easy for us as human beings to get swept away in the notion that, like, we're good and worthwhile, even if we don't have a whole lot of self-esteem, right? Like, why do I keep waking up every day and doing things if I'm so incredibly, worthless in my own mind? Okay, sorry, hopefully the camera view is roughly the same. My battery died unexpectedly, so I don't exactly remember what I was saying. I was just, to jump back into it, just the thought that it's very limiting to hold this belief that you are good, even if you want to be, even if you try to be. Like I was kind of saying, making those choices is one thing, but remaining open to the thought that you can be better in certain ways is important. Now, with that being said, I also wanted to add that you don't have to be constantly trying to be better. I think that it's very easy for us also to think we're not enough, and that's what I was saying about feeling worthless. Why would I continue going if I felt like I was that worthless? But in a similar vein, I feel like it's easy to think and get really overwhelmed with this feeling of like, I need to do more, be more, see more in the world. I need to, love more and be more active and whatever, like connect more. And it's impossible to do everything great, My philosophy for the last couple of years has been and continues to be, and I hope that I will continue to grow in making this my kind of dogma that the most important thing I can do is try to do good in my personal daily life. Everyone's so concerned about like this huge picture stuff, you know, like how is my throwing away this fork affecting someone in Cambodia, and if I don't finish these green beans, you know, that's a disservice to starving people in Africa, even though we have plenty of starving people in America. You know, it's always like some greater overreaching thought of everything we do can be seen as a mistake or like someone else's grievance in a way. And I know this is what happened. I was on freaking Twitter, and this is what I don't go on Twitter anymore, partially. I just started feeling between all of the stuff I was watching on YouTube, seeing on Twitter, hearing on the news, etc. I'm like, oh my God, how am I supposed to positively affect climate change, stand up for all races equally, make sure that people in the LGBTQIA++ community are all seen, heard, loved? How am I going to make sure everyone knows that I don't support these certain things, that I do support these certain things? You know, it's like all the bumper stickers in the world couldn't get you to the right place, and it just became so overwhelming. You know, it's like pro this and anti that and whatever, and it's a horrible way to live. It not only is it taxing and terrible for your mental health, it's pointless. You're never going to be able to affect it all. And the truth of the matter is that whether you like it or not, some fucked up shit is happening on the other side of the planet, or even the other side of your state today. Right now, something bad is happening. A child's being murdered. Incest is happening. Someone's being forced into human trafficking. All of the most horrific things that you can imagine are happening now, all the time, and they have been happening all the time for as long as there have been human beings. Even in the stories of creation, if you are religious, what's the first thing humans do? They fuck up. They sin. They do something wrong. That's the very first trait of human action is, hey, don't do this thing. And then they did the thing. It's impossible to live your life trying to put out all these fires and prove how you lean or how you feel about a certain issue. Not to mention, most people don't give a shit how you feel. People are arguing just to hear their voice being heard. People want to feel connected, heard, and respected. And you're actually only making things worse by just trying to yell louder and prove whatever point. If you want to have one cause that's very truly important to you, something that you can affect in your day-to-day life, so don't choose, I'm going to send nickels to, third world areas or sneakers, whatever, that probably won't get there and are probably in a scam charity, whatever. Do something in your day-to-day life that matters, Organize a cleanup of your local park if you care about climate change. Listen to people who are different than you when they speak if you care about race, religion, and all other forms of equality. Go to your local drag show and tip your favorite queen, like do something tangible in your little sphere of life that no one else gives a shit about except for you. And that is enough. If someone happens to ask you or involve you in a conversation where it matters how you feel, or they just want to know how you feel about something, then if you choose, you can say, here's how I feel about that. But it's not your job or my job to try and solve every single problem. And I think that that is a grand scale version of this problem I've been having of being a good person. I'm a good person. I do everything. It's like no one does everything right. And just like I said earlier, people will be offended at the fact that I shouldn't use the word offended because it's triggering, but people would consider me morally inferior for saying fuck. Someone out there is gonna be like, how can you think you're a good person when you do that? How can you think you're a good person when you do X, Y, or Z? And that's not the point, like live with that integrity and those good choices as they pertain to your daily life. Don't go out of your way to be trying to, make people believe you are one thing or the other thing when you probably don't even know that much about the subject yourself. Like, there are a lot of things I've held myself back from saying, feeling, or doing because it seemed to me to be the right thing to do by society's general standards of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. I've never even really asked myself what I think. Do these things matter to me? Am I wasting energy and suppressing my own life for things that I don't even agree with? I don't know. I think that those are just some of the beginning thoughts of, why you shouldn't believe that you're good and accept the fact that you and everyone else are flawed. And I know that, I've known that all along. I don't think I'm perfect. I've never thought that for sure. But it's just you don't have to be so rigid about stuff. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be morally upstanding to whatever degree. And I think that you're more prone to acting this way if you were raised in religion or are currently a religious zealot of any type. Because we're taught from a very young age that you're always being watched and judged, and every decision that you make is going on some huge ledger that's going to mark you as a good person or a bad person. Are you getting into heaven or hell? Are you getting presents or are you getting coal? It's always this perfect split of, if you're not meeting these criteria, something, you're going to be the bad guy. And that's just, in my opinion, kind of damaging to have that always in the back of your mind. I remember someone telling me when I was young that integrity is what you do when no one's watching. And in many cases, I can see that being a really good definition and a good thing to abide by, like don't steal something because no one's watching. Pay for it because that person that you're taking that thing from is working hard for their living, and you would be hurting their life by stealing. Don't just not take it because someone said, be careful what you're doing when no one's watching you. Like that's a whole different motivation. And I just think it's more stifling than helpful. I still don't think you should steal the thing, but I think you should do it for a logical reason, not based out of some fear or some intangible consequence that may or may not happen to you. And I wish that parenting included a better understanding of that. I wish that when parents got on to their kids for making bad decisions, poor decisions, decisions that don't align with their family morals, that it would be explained from a young age that here's why we're not gonna do this thing. Not just don't do that, it's bad. It's bad to do that. Here's why we're not doing that, okay? Because this other nice person has children too. And when you take this thing from them, you lose them money, and then their children aren't able to eat because you stole something to eat. Like that kind of humanizing and cause and effect that actually means something. So my kind of goal for myself is to look more at the cause and effect of my words and actions, and to better carve out my own sense of morals, because I do think that morals are personal and they vary from person to person, household to household, couple to couple, and I do think that there's still a place for morals. I do think that it's important to know what you consider to be moral and amoral, because it helps you in niche situations such as peer pressure, making a good snap decision, and most importantly, finding a partner in life. If you and your partner have different moral values, most of the time it's not going to work out, because those underlying principles that guide your life will at some point come to a head for some reason or another. So anyway, you suck, I suck, we all suck. No, just don't see good and bad. And that's not to say excuse everyone's shitty behavior because they were having a moment or they made a mistake or whatever. Like, certain things shouldn't be generalized as okay. Obviously, we're not cool with murder, but even our laws are cool with murder in self-defense, and a lot of us are like, we read a story, this man killed this other man who was sleeping with his wife or whatever, and we're just like, yeah, well, I would have done the same thing. I've always said since I had Frida, like, if someone does something to Frida, kidnaps her, hurts her, hits her with their car, I'll kill that person. Would I really? Probably not, but like, you can rationalize those things because they're so strongly tied to emotions, I'm still not saying that things are okay, but just things like that. I'm not just saying we should give everyone a pass because of their motivations, but at the same time, it's not one thing or the other. You're not either good or bad. Most people are in between. And I was listening to another thing recently, John Deloney, and he's got some good takes and some bad takes, but he was mentioning an episode that I watched recently that his father, who was like a crime detective or something, I don't know, hated talking to these awful criminals because sometimes when he was across the table from them and they were telling their side of the story, it kind of made sense to him. There's still a human being on the other side of everything that happens, so treat other people the way that they want to be treated. Ask people, communicate with people, and keep in touch with yourself on these things and constantly be updating them to suit what makes most sense to you.